Hello everyone, it's Gigabeef here, and today I'm going to show you some underweight kits that you can use to actually get some levels in endurance. As many of you have probably noticed, it's now incredibly difficult to get experience points into this skill, with even players like myself that are typically pretty lightweight in raid gaining more levels in strength than endurance in 12-12-30, which is incredibly unusual. It appears that in this patch, the weight limit before being overweight has been reduced to about 20 kilograms as a baseline, and although this does go up slowly with time as your strength levels up, at level 10, which is where I am currently, any further weight over 22.2 kilogram tips me into the yellow. As a reminder of how this works and the effect on the skills, to level endurance you just need to move around, either walking or running with your weight showing as a white number, meaning that you are underweight. Conversely, to level strength you do the same, but with your weight in the yellow, which explains why so many players are struggling to level it this time, as previously the overweight limit was quite a bit higher. One of the largest contributors to overall weight is our armour, especially when you move up into class 4 territory. For example, the 6B5 Ulay is the third heaviest rig in the entire game, weighing 12 kilos and taking up 60% of our allocation right off the bat. So obviously we need to think about this first and foremost before checking out the rest of the kit. If you just want to wear something and anything will do, then funnily enough the lowly Packer has the lowest weight of any armour in all of Tarkov with 3.5 kilos. At class 2 it's not going to do much to protect you, but it might give some damage mitigation and will stop those Scav buckshot thorax one-taps. The silver lining is that by insuring this one you'll probably get it back 90% of the time, because it's just not worth taking unless you're a Scav with no armour or your own armour is completely destroyed. This is closely followed by the new Dr. Disrespect version of the Packer, which at 4 kilos ups the protection to class 3 instead and also gives you insane effective durability. We've spoken about this one before, as if the armour will protect you from around, basically 25 pen or lower, then it will protect you very well due to its aramid material type. As a slightly more affordable suggestion in class 3, we also have the press armour, which is the next lowest at 5.2 kilograms. Still decent protection, well for a class 3 anyway, and is usually cheaper and more available than the DRD rig on the fleet. This is one of my favourites for a throwaway kit. Swapping over to armoured rigs for a moment, the single class 3 Ulay is not terrible at 7.1 kilos, and you don't need a regular rig either, so that weight combines both together. These are really quite expensive at 57k though, so unless you're under level 15 and can't access the flea market, the other options are more likely to be cost effective. We do probably want to think mostly about class 4 though, because this is what the bulk of players will be aiming to gear up for. In fact, the lightest class 4 armour that you can get is actually a rig, which is the ScavTalk. At 6.5 kilos and not needing a regular rig either, this is a really strong contender for best to use for this purpose, as well as being a decent rig on its own. Unfortunately, this one is a Ragman 3 barter, which means that it won't be accessible to most players at this stage of the progression, and the same goes for the ANA M2 as well at 7 kilos. The next best alternative is probably the Trooper armour or the MMAC armoured rig. The Trooper weighs 6.8 kilograms and the MMAC at 7.2, with both of these protecting the thorax only. However, the Trooper is purchasable on the flea market and the MMAC is available for barter at Ragman 2. The go-to class 4, the 6B3TM, is 9.2 kilos, so a good 2 kilograms more than any of these choices, but it can be used if you cut back in other areas. With all of the regular armours, we have to pair them with a rig for usual gameplay, unless you're going super light with a shotgun and can just do with the pockets. Fortunately, regular rigs are extremely light, with the idea rig being only 0.22 kilograms. Just a shame the only colour option is Smurf Blue. In fact, all the Scav style rigs are very light, including the Scav vest itself and the security vest too, but for those that are a bit better to use, the direct action Thunderbolt is the 4th lightest rig at 0.62 kilos, closely followed by the Bank Robber with 0.7. Thunderbolts are usually about 20 to 25k on the flea, and Bank Robbers can be bought for Ragman for 10k, which is usually my go-to unless I'm doing something specific. As for helmets, the lightest proper one is the Tak Kek at class 1, but we'll probably give this one a miss. The NFM helmet is the next lightest at 0.8 kilos and can be bought from the fleet. Class 3 and 40 to 50k though is pretty high, and I'd probably just take the extra weight with the Ratnik at 1.3 kilos. There's a bunch of different helmet options at this weight point, but they're usually either high tier or low grade, plus the weight difference isn't too massive. The Ratnik is still lighter than the SSH helmet, so please use the Ratnik, use the Bleach Barter, it's way better than that helmet. In terms of headsets, all of these are about half a kilogram. Contacts are the heaviest at 0.7, but again I don't think it really matters too much, so just choose whichever one you like the best. On to the weapons. Although this is kind of tricky because it depends on how you mod them, broadly speaking the choice of guns that are lightest is pretty obvious. All of the pistols range from about 0.7 to 1 kilogram roughly speaking, so by doing a pistol run you can kind of take whatever else you want with you. Outside of these, the next selection probably won't surprise you too much either. Looking at the base weight of these guns, the MP9 and the MP9N came out as the first non-pistols with the lowest weight, followed closely by the Kedar and the Klin. Even with its suppressor, the Kedar B is only 1.7 kilos, and funny enough, the MP5K is actually the heaviest of these micro SMGs at just under 2 kilos. Personally, I'm a little bit surprised to see the UMP so far down here, lighter than both the MP7 and the MP5, and the first weapon that we might actually want to use generally, rather than just for specific CQB type gameplay. The only thing to bear in mind here is that the rounds for the UMP are quite heavy, and the UMP itself plus 3 full mags will set you back 3.8 kilograms in total. If you're into accurate head tapping, the STM9 also resides around here at the 2 kilo mark, which is another option. As the mag capacity is only 17 for the basic version, each one weighs 0.18 kilos when filled with 9mm, and 9mm is much lighter than 45, meaning 5 mags is still under a kilo of extra weight. There's another couple of weapons in the list here, but usually you either can't get the ammo or they are impractical in some other way. All of the regular rifles that you'd normally think of sit around the 3 kilogram region or higher, with the lowest being the G36. However, attaching the rail to allow for other optics than the horrible default one tips it back up to 2.9, so isn't that useful? However, in the middle here we can see the trusty AK-74U and the 74UN. These shorty versions shave off at least half a kilo versus their bigger brethren and can be handy for just squeaking below the weight threshold. As you can probably imagine, there are millions of different ways that you can do this, but one other type is on the budget sniping kits. The VPO-215 is not very light, but is relatively compared to the other bolt actions, and once you've added a suppressor and an optic it's over 4 kilos. However, because the magazines are tiny and you only need one stack of ammo, overall it ends up kind of working out the same. As for bags, these are relatively straightforward, but surprisingly the lightest are the Sling, which is tiny so we're not going to use, and then the MBS-S, and then the black Daypack in third. All the other various bags end up weighing more, so I just go with the Daypack at 0.67. The green Bearcut bag is actually 1 kilogram, so quite a bit more than this. Finally, in terms of meds, as it turns out, the car first aid kit is the heaviest other than the Grizzly at 1 kilo, whereas Salewas are only 0.6. AFACs are 0.8, IFACs 0.5, and AI2 kits are 0.2, so the best heal to weight ratio is in the Salewa, but for the secure container the IFAC is a good choice. Do remember that your secure container counts as well, so any spare ammo, meds or cases in there also contribute, as well as the special items like the compass and the rangefinder. It's not much, but if you aren't going to use them, then it might be worth saving 0.3 kilos to take that extra bit of ammo or something else. So next up, if you are wondering how to ease your way to Vitality or Sniper level 3 to eventually upgrade the med station or progress on Tarkov Shooter, go and watch this one next, which explains what I end up doing every wipe. It is a little bit old now, so some parts are a touch outdated, such as the Aquamaris which got nerfed, but the Vitality and Sniper leveling sections are still perfectly valid, and in fact I did exactly the same thing this wipe as I never get to Vitality 3 naturally. Otherwise, as usual, a big shout out to all my patrons, hit all the buttons if you enjoyed the video, and as always, have fun in your raids.